Good afternoon, Robert Scribbler with the OBX Wave Report here, and I am just back from a surf safari down to Avon Pier with new surfer. Got some videos of our trip. Katz and I were happy to host Louise and happy to provide some help learning how to surf. Surfing is one of those things that you gotta just stick to. It takes time to learn, and you can't really learn surfing in one day, or at least I've never seen anyone just get out there and boom, be like good at, all the surfing things like duck diving and standing up, and catching yourself on a moving wave on the first day. So like we all have to learn how to crawl before we walk, and we all have to learn how to walk before we run. And with surfing, there's a lot of things to learn to do. It's very acrobatic. It's very, gymnastic. It's very, there's a lot of different muscles involved, and there's also like some endurance aspect, particularly out here on the Outer Banks where the surf is pretty powerful. And then there's just also the factor of learning the ocean itself and how the ocean works, and of course each beach is different. Every ocean is different. Every wave is different. So there's just a lot of things to learn, and so being patient with yourself and with others is really a big part of learning to surf. And I think I said this before. If you're falling down, you've got momentum. But Louise did do first full pop-up today, which is awesome. We were out there in the foamy waves on the sandbar at Avon, catching some good waves, and got a little film of that, and that's uploading now, so hopefully you guys get a chance to see it. This picture right here we took coming down the Outer Banks strand, and this is the infamous Ocean Drive where the waves are taking away homes from us, the rising seas driven by climate change, driven by fossil fuel burning. And I thought I would show you this picture that we got of Ocean Drive today because this is yet another Friday for Future week 239. So I encourage you to please go out and support your climate activists, Greta Thunberg, and all the Friday for Future movement folk, and do your best to help support the various nonprofits that are helping to face down and fight the climate crisis, and also adding impetus to the push to mass deploy clean energy to save the beautiful coastlines like this. I was also reading an article in Magic Seaweed that I don't believe I have up, but I'm going to recommend you guys take a look at Magic Seaweed. There was an article about how coral reefs are very important to surfers, and it's just a pretty basic thing that, I mean, reefs and sandbars are where the waves break. And if you don't have a healthy reef system, you don't have a healthy break. And if you have rising oceans that are constantly chomping away the wonderful beaches and breaks that we love, the dynamics of the coastline start moving into flux, and you don't really have much in the way of a reliable break. So, and not to mention the fact that just as the Earth warms, the oceans become a much nastier and less pleasant place. So, yeah, if you like surfing, you're gonna want to help accelerate the push for clean energy, unless you're living in denial. But don't do that. Just help yourself and others and do the good things. All right, so let's get into today's wave report. Some of this might be a little ad hoc. I haven't gone through like the full summation yet, which means I haven't like previewed everything. But I'm just going to go ahead and discover with you the wave, weather, and climate features both for the Outer Banks and the lower 48 and the North Atlantic as we journey together through this wave report. And right now, for the U.S. East Coast, I'm looking at the water vapor image, total precipitable water provided by the Global Forecast System model. And we've got a front right now over the U.S. Southeast, California getting a bit of a respite from the atmospheric river, well, which is still lurking, still scheduled to provide another big dump for California by Monday, but California getting a little break right now. And going on to the geocolor composite, advancing it to today. This is a satellite image provided by the good folks at NOAA. You can find this image at the National Hurricane Center. National Hurricane Center provides fantastic research on tropical systems and serves as both a science informer and as a part of the national alert system for powerful storms. But today we've got this frontal boundary, big old front, draped from the Gulf of Mexico, running all the way across the Appalachians right now, up through the Northeast, up through the Great Lakes, and then swirling around a storm center that looks like it's near the Great Lakes right now. Looking at the enhanced cloud tops, we can see some powerful, looks like powerful storms firing around the Gulf Coast region, and storms starting to move through North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama, and Virginia right now. We've got another front approaching the west coast with what looks like some wet weather, possible snowy weather for the higher elevations. Looking at the National Weather Service radar, you can see those storms in association with the front, excuse me, moving toward the Appalachians right now. These storms are expected to move toward the east. We've got some cloudy conditions here in the Outer Banks right now, but yeah, and there are some showers to the west of us, but the main body of showers is still out toward the mountains. Worth noting that some locations along the Outer Banks right now are seeing gale warnings up, and for the northern banks, we've got small craft advisories in effect. Right now, strong southwest winds blowing, and some of those gusts could be pretty strong today. We did get down to Avon earlier. It was relatively windy, but not too crazy down there. All right, so getting down to our local wave report. Waves right now in the range of 1 to 4 feet across the Outer Banks. And for most of the beaches, 1 to 2 feet. But of course, Buxton is breaking the trend. The size of the swell coming is not too big, but at some locations, the swell is lining up very nicely to produce some larger waves. So right now at Jeanette's Pier, waves are in the range of 1 to 2 feet. We've got a 21-mile-per-hour south-southwest wind, which is a strong offshore flow. Swells coming in at about 1.1 to 1.3 feet, 15-second primary swell, 11-second secondary swell. Air temperature right now 61 degrees Fahrenheit. Ocean water temperature pretty cold at Jeanette's Pier at 48 degrees Fahrenheit. And the weather conditions right now are windy, clouds moving in, some rain expected later. High today around 62 degrees. That might have already been reached at most locations. Heading on down south, we've got 1 to 2 foot waves at Rodanth. And then at Avon right now, solid 2 foot waves. Maybe some larger waves in the sets. 24-mile-per-hour offshore winds coming in from the southwest. That has a strong offshore flow. Primary swells coming in at 15 seconds. Secondary swell coming in at 11 seconds. Swells in the range of about 1.3 to 1.4 feet, but lining up very well down there at Avon to produce some pretty powerful surf for the size of the waves. Air temperatures right now about 61 degrees. Ocean water temperatures still pretty cold down there at 55, but considerably warmer than at Jeanette's Pier. Today it's expected to be windy with some clouds moving in and rain later. High today of 62, probably already reached. And then as we head on down south to Buxton, waves are in the range of 3 to 4 feet. Winds coming in from the south-southwest at around 27 miles per hour, which is a rather strong offshore flow. Primary swell coming in at 15 seconds, secondary swell coming in at believe 11 seconds. The primary swell is the swell's ranging from 1.2 to 1.8 feet, lining up very well there at Buxton to produce those 3 to 4 foot waves. Air temperatures right now 63 degrees Fahrenheit. That's probably the high for today. Ocean water temperatures at 59, and it is windy with clouds moving in and rain expected later. All right, so getting down to some of the weather and climate features for today on this Friday for future, let's go ahead and make sure that we are looking at present conditions for the Arctic and for the Northern Hemisphere. And right now we see that warm air invasions do continue from the Siberian side of the Arctic, with a large pulse of warmer than normal conditions moving across from the eastern Siberian side of the Arctic and in a little bit of an arc running up through the Bering Sea region. The well of cold air that has been sweeping down into the United States is not as resilient as it was. Nonetheless, we still have another pulse of cold air coming in behind a front that is pushing up warmer than normal temperatures across the U.S. Southeast right now. And looking at the temperature anomaly map provided by Karsten Haustein, we do see that warm air invasion on the East Siberian, North American side of the Arctic, the colder than normal air swooping down behind the front and the warmer than normal air ahead of it. And still over Asia and Europe right now, much warmer than normal conditions. And then as we head on down into Antarctica, warmer than normal conditions as well. It's worth noting that right now the tropics are ever so slightly cooler than normal, but the rest of the globe is at about 0.46 degrees Celsius above normal. So yet another day where temperatures are hotter than normal under the pall of global warming produced by fossil fuel burning, which is injecting the greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. All right, so looking at the NOAA quantitative prediction forecast, we do have a tendency for storms for the U.S. West Coast, a tendency for storms off the U.S. East Coast, particularly off the U.S. Southeast Coast, possible tendency for nor'easter formation, and then some tendency for storms in the central U.S. and some heavier precipitation in the mountain ranges of the Rockies. Looking at the Storm Predictions Center convective outlooks, we do have a slight risk of severe weather, meaning powerful, severe thunderstorms, hail, damaging straight line winds, strong lightning, heavy rain, and possible tornadoes along the along the Gulf Coast, but nothing too crazy. And then getting into tomorrow, no severe thunderstorms expected, and on Sunday, no severe thunderstorms expected as well. All right, now let's get into the global forecast system model. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this. This is Tropical Tidbits, Levi Cohen's masterwork of tracking the tropics. And Levi is about to wake up for us and start doing some of the tropical weather and climate analysis, which I'm really excited about being a surfer and a climate enthusiast. So I do recommend you check out Levi on the social medias and check out Tropical Tidbits for all the latest on the tropics and all the various awesome weather models that are provided there. But right now we've got this large front sweeping in across the United States, mostly rain from the Gulf Coast all the way up through to the Great Lakes. Some snows behind the fronts, and most of the snows up into Canada. I'm going to go ahead and advance this model so we can see what the front does. And as it sweeps on in through tonight and tomorrow, we expect some strong southwest winds here in the Outer Banks, some possible choppy surf conditions, and cooling behind the front as the front sinks on into the ocean environment and then is expected to stall out. And in this model, we've seen the potential for nor'easter development by midweek, and so I'm looking to see if that continues. And here I am at Wednesday in the mile, and it looks like no nor'easter. So again, um, the earlier models might have shown us potential for nor'easter, but right now we don't really have much of one. Um, so even as we get into Friday, so it might be a little stormy as the front is expected to, looks like it's expected to sag down into the Gulf and then belly back up toward the southeastern US and even in toward the northeast, with looks like warm air moving in behind it. So it might actually be warmer than expected this week. We'll have to look at that. We're going to have to look at the temperature forecasts. But if it's expected to be warmer, then it looks like I might get some more surf days in, which is really good. Warm and small, I don't care. All right, I need to practice my pop-ups too, right? So, getting later into the week on Friday, it looks like some potential for severe weather again in the central U.S. Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, parts of the Ohio Valley. Yikes, could be some severe weather here. We'll see. We'll have to pay attention to the Storm Prediction Center, see what happens. And then the storm is expected to ride up into the northeast and become a big snowstorm for Canada, looks like. And then as we head later into the week, looks like a continuation of that trend where storms develop near the coast and then sweep on off U.S. East Coast. This looks like a potential for a nor'easter for the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, but this is Tuesday. Let's see, looks like 11 days from now, so grain of salt territory yet again. All right, so let's get down to the wave models, and let's go to now. When will then be now? Looking at the waves. So I can say the waves have been actually pretty fun, pretty um, easy to ride, I would say. Not too choppy, not too steep, not too crazy today. Although I didn't get like a lot of waves myself. I did mostly like, surf instruction, but they did look rather nice. We do have a bit of a confused swell in the model, but looks like most of the primary swell is still coming in from the east and northeast, with near offshore environment waves in the range of 3 to 4 feet, translating to looks like maybe just a 1 to 2 foot swell near the coast, but then as the waves cross the coast, they seem to be pumping up to 1 to 4 feet. And then as we get into the day on Friday, we get that stronger southwest wind, possibly blowing out the surf, but nonetheless near shore waves in the range of 4 to 6 feet. And then into Sunday, the wind turns around to the north, the swell turns around to the north, and we get a swell coming in at about 3.5 to 5 feet-ish in the near offshore environment. Not sure if this is going to be a great day on Sunday, but with that swell coming in out of the north, let's look at the winds. Winds aren't actually very heavy on Sunday, at least in the afternoon. So the waves might actually be rather decent, though the air temperatures will tend to be colder. And then as we get into the day on Monday, the swell orients more toward the east. So coming from the east, heading toward the west in the 2 to 3 foot range. And looking at the winds, winds are rather light coming out of the north, looking at the temperatures. Temperatures in the 40s, yikes. You know, these models tend to be cooler, so it might actually get into the 50s by the time we get into Monday, but we'll see. But nonetheless, potentially decent little waves on Monday, and then into Tuesday, we have a solid swell coming out of the east, although not a very large swell, in the range of about 2 to 4 feet. Um, air is, yeah, winds are not too strong coming out of the east at 15 to 20 miles per hour, looks like. Air temperature is probably still cold-ish, not too cold though. So it looks like in the 50s as we get on into Tuesday. And then, do we have Wednesday? Nope, we do not have Wednesday. So it looks like the next 5 days are going to be, um, I would say, pretty decent waves over the next 5 days. Small, but so tomorrow probably not very good with strong southwest winds. You might find a sheltered beach where the waves are good, but and then Sunday probably pretty decent little waves. Yeah, so from Sunday through Tuesday, decent little waves in the range of 1 to 4 feet, depending on how they line up to the coast. Colder air temperatures, but not too crazy. I mean, colder than today, probably upper 40s, lower 50s, and nothing too crazy in the way of weather expected. So, might be good surf days if you're willing to brave some colder conditions. All right, so thank you for joining me for this Friday for Future session of the OBX Wave Report. I'm going to do a little Friday for Future special because we didn't really focus too much on Friday for Future stuff with this Wave Report. We'll probably do that later on tonight. But please do help support your climate activists on this Friday for Future, and please do everything you can to help speed the transition to clean energy being wind, water, solar, electric vehicles. And we can do it. We can save our coastlines. We can mass deploy the clean energy. We don't have to be scared of, all the awful things because we've got the means to beat it back. And let's just have confidence and just do it. All right. So thank you for joining me. And I will be back with you shortly with some more